Welcome to Sustainable Packaging with Cory Connors. Today's guest is Mr. Paul Evers, the co-founder and CEO of Riff. Hey, Paul, how are you?
I'm doing great, Cory. Thank you for having me today. I really appreciate it, especially as a fellow Oregonian.
That's right. Us Northwesterners have to stick together, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I'm excited to hear about your background. I finally got your samples of your product today, so we'll have lots to talk about. Can you tell us how you got into this industry?
Well, my background actually is creative services. I had a career in graphic design, art direction, then creative direction, then founded an agency here in Bend with a couple of really good friends. We ended up specializing in craft beverage with an emphasis on craft beer. So we did a lot of work in that space and ended up co-founding a craft brewery here in Bend called Crux Fermentation Project. If you're in Bend, I hope you visit us. And then realized that after 5 years in day-to-day there that I was really engineered to build things. So I was looking for the next venture. I handed the keys off to a partner there at Crux who was a very strong leader, great vision, and then started looking at what the next thing might be and landed on cold brew as a segment within coffee, which I saw a strong correlation with craft as a segment within beer, and an opportunity to disrupt, redefine, innovation, creativity, etc.
Well, that's outstanding. For those of you listening, Crux is an amazing beer brewery here in the Northwest. I'm a big fan, and thank you for the work you did there. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So, can you tell us about Riff? What is this new drink company that you've come up with?
Well, there's a long story. Let's say we first put product into market in 2018, in the late summer of 2018. We started as a cold brew coffee company, and we were seeking to sort of introduce craft sensibility to the cold brew coffee space. Again, like I said before, seeing it as being the disruptor, the change agent within coffee. And so we kind of tore a page out of the craft beer book and opened up with an incredible tap room. It had 30 taps and a really, really intricate and creative tap tower system. And we were, moving liquid across the taps using 3 different temperatures, 4 different gases. We were doing cold nitro. We were doing cold brew coffee cocktails on tap. We were doing collaborations with the craft breweries. And we had a really cool thing, which was a hot nitro product. So coffee that was brewed cold, stored cold, and then transferred to the tap tower cold, but then heated and nitrogenated just before being poured into the cup. It presented more like a latte. So that was really about, consumer engagement, getting them involved in the product development process. We did a lot of experimentation, poured product and passed it across the bar to consumers, get their direct feedback. That's actually what led to this Riff Energy Plus product that we have today. But then, of course, COVID hit, and that became a real challenge. COVID hit, and the lockdown, the shutdown hit in March of 2020. We were just a little over a year in the tap room, but we're seeing tremendous growth there. But then it was shut down, and it took several months. But we decided to, corral our time, energy, and imagination around our core business of producing RTD beverages and package for distribution. COVID also hit our cold brew business pretty hard. We were big in the workplace. We had product on Nike campus. We'd just been authorized for Columbia Sportswear. We were in other corporate offices here in Bend, and those were big consumers. When you're offering free cold brew in an office environment where productivity is key, you're moving a lot of cold brew. So COVID was very tough on that business. So we started innovating, bringing a craft sensibility over to the coffee space, innovating with a byproduct of the coffee harvest. It's called cascara or coffee fruit. And so this is really fascinating and interesting to us because there was a really wonderful exotic flavor profile to coffee fruit. It's got notes of dried fruit, apricot, honey, a sweetness, a natural sweetness, a tartness, and it's complex, really, really amazing. What's even more amazing about it is it's loaded with nutritional value. It's got loaded with antioxidants. It's rich in potassium, magnesium, and iron. And we didn't know anything about this. Did you know that coffee was a fruit?
No, that's fascinating.
Most people don't know that coffee's a fruit. When you tell them, well, it's like an apricot. Imagine, taking apricot pits for 400 or 500 years, which is how long the coffee industry has been around, for 400 or 500 years, roasting coffee, apricot pits, grinding it and making a wonderful hot beverage, but never ever knowing that there's this amazing, luscious fruit that surrounds the pit that's just been thrown to waste because, 400 or 500 years ago, coffee growers were exporting dried green coffee beans, and there was not the access to information. People weren't traveling across the world to see how their food was grown, and so you ended up with the vast population of the planet is completely unaware of how coffee is grown, harvested, and processed. So coffee is a fruit. So the beans are actually a two-headed seed within this fruit. And it's pretty complex. It's pretty amazing fruit. We've come to believe that coffee fruit, the fruity pulp that surrounds the bean on the plant, is arguably the better half of what the coffee plant has to offer because of the nutritional content, the exotic flavor notes. It's just really an amazing thing. So the way we got to this is, first stumbling upon that. Second, kind of doing research to trying to understand how much coffee fruit is produced on an annual basis. What are the traditional uses of coffee fruit? And if it's thrown to waste, what's the environmental impact? And so we learned that in coffee growing regions, coffee fruit is dried after extracting the beans, and it's actually brewed into a hot tea in a lot of coffee growing regions. So like Yemen, Central South America, Ethiopia, awesome. But it's not really exported at scale. And so
what do they call that tea? Is that cascara tea?
It's called cascara tea. So in Spanish, well, it depends on what country you're in. So in Yemen, they have a different term for it, and East Africa as well. But Latin American countries use the term cáscara, which is Spanish for husk or skin.
Oh, cool. And you've taken those and you put them into these drinks. That's amazing.
Well, that's a simple way to put it. But yes, that's what we do. So, what really was super transformative for Riff, we started out wanting to bring a craft sensibility to the cold brew coffee space, to be a hip, cool coffee brand, disruptive from an aesthetic and kind of ethos, spirit perspective, introducing fun into coffee. And then we stumbled across this new byproduct of the coffee harvest. We started asking around, well, how much of this stuff is produced and what are the traditional uses, or how is it being used today? And we couldn't get any straight answers. So we started doing our own desk research and unearthing wide range of claims around magnitude of what's produced, magnitude of what's wasted, and what the impact is on the environment. And so we didn't feel like we could really make any claims with integrity unless we had some kind of scientific rigor behind it. So we reached out to a senior climate change scientist at Oregon State University, Dr. Dominique Bachelet, and invited her and kind of persuaded her to partner with us on what we believe to be the first robust environmental impact study around cascara or coffee fruit, because we haven't been able to find a published study that predates ours. So they assigned it to a PhD student, and the conclusions validated that we had every right to be suspicious. And we're proud to say that now we have science to back our claims. So the synopsis of that is 25 billion pounds of green coffee is dried and exported around the world. That results in about 100 billion pounds of coffee fruit that is produced as a byproduct of the harvest and processing. And 30% of that is either converted by composting it into fertilizer or to biofuel or animal feed, but 70% of it is literally thrown to waste, and thrown to waste in a variety of ways, but the most prominent means of throwing it to waste and getting rid of it is by hauling it off to landfill.
Wow. Amazing to me that that's wasted when it's so full of nutrition. That's incredible.
I mean, what we say is, the environmental impact is awful, but what makes it an even graver sin is that it's rich in nutritional value, as you say. That's what really makes, when you think about, it's traditionally thrown to waste, you automatically assume that there's no value to it, right? There's no nutritional or no economic value. So what do? You waste it. And a lot of really innovative brands right now are trying to figure out how do you divert food from going to waste and upcycling it into products that, you know, people would enjoy. And it's not about upcycling trash. This is what we'd say is arguably the better half of what the coffee plant has to offer.
What does it taste like right off of the bean?
Well, it depends on where you're getting it from. So if you can imagine like grapes and wine, you know, terroir is a more significant aspect in the fruit than it is the bean. But there's a lot of variable flavor profiles just within coffee. That's amazing in and of itself. But that then is amplified with the fruit. The fruit is more subject to the environment, right? Climate, oil, all those things. So we've you know, done sensory on cascara and coffee fruit from Ethiopia, India, Central America, North, South America. And generally speaking, it has a dried fruit flavor profile. It's kind of complex. Maybe it telegraphs a little bit of dates or raisins or apricots. It's got an earthiness to it, and it's got a tartness to it. So it's got a kind of like a lemon note, along with sweetness. It's rich in sugar, it's rich in moisture content, and then so it depends on where you're, I guess, sampling it from. But I've tasted apple, raisin, dates, apricot. It's really interesting and quite complex.
So you could eat it right off of the vine. It would taste okay. Okay, yeah, excellent.
Yeah, you pull it off the coffee tree. You know, can extract the seeds of the beans, and then you can chew and eat the whole thing. The skin is a little bit leathery, not too bad, but a little bit. And but then there's this really wonderful fruit inside there.
Well, that's amazing. And thank you for sending me some samples. You sent me a 6-pack packaged very sustainably in a nice craft corrugated box inside of another corrugated box that was just slightly bigger with some void fill and some cushioning. But I really like the packaging you chose. It's a 12-ounce sleek can. That means the tall can. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see that I'm holding up the can. But if you're listening, I'll describe it. It's a very cool design, kind of retro feel. And the flavors that I have are Booyah Berry and Get It Guava. So where'd you come up with those names, Paul?
Well, you know, the spirit of Riff is like optimism and collaboration and a belief that what we can do together as a community is far greater than what we can do on our own. And one of our core values is to take our work very seriously, but not take ourselves seriously. So we're about kind of conveying a motivated spirit. So that's where those fanciful names came from, is Booyah Berry and Get It Guava. We have a Pick It Up Pomegranate. Those are all about conveying a motivated spirit, optimism, you know, aspiration, you know, goal setting, get you going.
It's very motivating, and it sounds delicious. We were talking before the show. I just received the samples an hour before the podcast started, so I didn't have time to chill them down and try them. But I do look forward to that.
Well, I've been drinking this one here. This is the six gallon can, super sustainable, because you got 6 gallons, whatever you can. For those of you, if you're not on YouTube, you can't see this big giant can I have.
Yeah.
We do have some room for improvement
awesome.
on the sustainability of that package. I'd love to talk about that.
Yeah, tell me what your future plans are, and if I can help at all, I'd be happy to.
Well, on the can itself, right, aluminum is infinitely recyclable, so that's great. But we're a small brand, we're emerging, and if you notice, I mean, there's even some progress since the can that you have. We've been working very hard in getting third-party certifications for our claims. First and foremost, carbon neutral. We're certified carbon neutral. We're the first energy drink or functional beverage in the US to become certified carbon neutral. And that 99.9% of that carbon neutrality really comes from the diversion of food waste. And we didn't talk about that, but you know, all this coffee fruit, if you imagine, piled up in the mountains in landfills in Central and South America and other places around the world, in Africa, Kenya, Ethiopia.
70 billion pounds wasted. That's incredible.
And that, as it's sitting in landfill, decomposing, it is producing methane gas equivalent to 14.5 million metric tons of CO2. That's the same level of emissions as 3 million automobiles in a single year. Not only that, because it's a rich, high in moisture, high in sugar, it's a really a wonderful environment for microbials, and mycotoxins are being developed and seeping into soils and water tables, rendering that land useless for future agricultural production. It's really creating such a significant mess. So carbon neutral, one of the big objectives that we've embraced is helping reverse coffee's contribution to climate change through food waste. The other is that we're a member of 1% for the planet, where we're taking 1% of our revenue, working with partners within the 1% for the planet family, and allocating those funds to forest preservation and reforestation projects in coffee growing communities. We're also proud to say that we're upcycled certified. That means that it's verified and certified that we're diverting food waste in creating this product, which is Cascara coffee fruit. And then the other thing that we're really proud of, was just announced this past week, is that we're now verified non-GMO. So in acquiring those third-party certifications, it has kept us from being able to move to printed cans, because printed cans very high minimum order quantity. And the last thing you want to do is then stick labels on cans as you get these third-party certifications. So we're really proud to say that we've gotten all the certifications we've been seeking. As a small brand, each of those certifications requires a significant investment, not just money, but a lot of time and energy. Yeah. And so now we're moving to printed cans for the next run, and it's really incredible.
Congratulations!
We're very excited, and we believe just that move alone might be enough to take us to being inherently 100% carbon neutral.
Well, that's incredible. And it sounds like you be the first energy drink company to do that, which is amazing. So kudos and congratulations.
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Of course.
And to clarify, 0.1% of our revenue is going to purchase carbon offsets, and that's to make up for the plastic and other things that keep us from being 100% inherently carbon neutral. But so we see that as being very, very close and near in our future.
Amazing. And it sounds like these things are delicious too. So that I'm looking forward to that. So booyah berry, blackberry and acai sparkling drinks. It sounds amazing to me. And I like that it's got a little bit of caffeine in it and lots of vitamins. I was reading through the ingredients and getting very thirsty. So I'm looking forward to throwing these in the fridge after we're done.
So. That's my afternoon pick-me-up. It's perfect for that.
Yeah, excellent. I wanted to talk about your partnership with Sedona Prints. And can you tell us about that?
Well, first off, I hope that people know who Sedona Prints is. About 9 people out of 10 that I talked to do know who Sedona Prints is. I'm going to say maybe it's 6 or 7. They'll say, no, I don't. And then I describe what she'd done. And they say, oh yeah, I know exactly who she is. So she made a name for herself when she posted a TikTok at the March Madness basketball tournament a year ago March. And she called out the disparity between the men's and women's weight training facilities. It was pretty incredible. You should pull that up. She did an amazing job of telling the story with sort of a lightheartedness, humor, and also gravity. Closing her post was saying, if you're not doing anything about this, then you're part of the problem. And so she really she's an incredible individual. So we had Vernon Davis. Vernon Davis is a retired NFL player. He's also, a Super Bowl champion. He is an ambassador, an investor, and advisor for Riff. So he spent a few days with us in Oregon last October, and the highlight of that trip was spending 3 days on campus at University of Oregon, speaking to EA business students, speaking in the Center for Sustainable Business Practices. And we also made arrangements for some of the student athletes there to be able to have a chance to meet Vernon with smaller groups. There was a dinner where student athletes were invited to come and visit with Vernon, as well as some other folks of us, 3 of us from Riff. And I was welcomed at the door of the restaurant by Sedona Prints. And I was like, oh my God, you're Sedona Prints. Well, she's 6'7". I'm 5'11", so she towered over me. And we ended up sitting at the same corner away from everybody and just talking about life, talking about values, talking about what's important. We talked a lot about equity, inclusion, and we just kind of built a chemistry. It was very natural. And I asked her, I said, would you ever consider becoming an ambassador for a teeny little brand out of Bend, Oregon that's trying to make a difference in the coffee world? And she said, maybe. So we talked later on, a couple of different opportunities. And so that led to what is now, she is a partner in Riff. She's got an official title, Chief Community Officer. And she's really all about evangelizing her followers and letting them know about what's happening with coffee and what Riff is doing to solve a whole slew of problems, of which we've only, touched on 2 or 3 of them. And so she's a lot of fun. It's been amazing to be able to work with her. So she's going to be starting to become much more active here in the next few weeks.
Oh, wow.
So you can look for her, follow her on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, not much on Facebook or LinkedIn.
That's totally normal. Yeah. Well, that's amazing.
She has 1 million more followers on TikTok than a brand called Nike.
I've heard of Nike. Wow. Good for her. And I love to hear stories like that about quality and how, people are fighting the good fight to get things back in equality and equal. So that's wonderful. Good for her. Good for you for supporting her. And kudos to Riff. We'll be supporting you guys from our stage here. And I'm excited. Any other new flavors coming out or anything in the works?
Well, I had a meeting with Sedona in Eugene the week before last, and it was to talk about what's coming up and to get her input and invite her to collaborate with us on the next extension. So we're working on a couple of possible extensions to the Riff Energy Plus line. One is going to be a sugar-free, so pretty close to zero or very low calorie, but sugar-free, no added sugars. We really try and keep that at bay. And when we do add sugars, it's organic cane sugar. And then the other is looking at other functional benefits, such as focus, recovery, and those kinds of things. So, Riff Energy Plus was really our entree into the functional beverage space. And that's our vision, is to build on the functional benefits and offer a wide range for any and all consumers who are seeking those kinds of products, which that's growing at a rate of about 20% year over year. People seeking out wellness and use-based functional benefits.
Absolutely. And food is medicine, in my opinion, and can be used that way and to help us all become healthier and more active and live longer lives. And sounds like you guys are making an awesome product. So can't wait to try them.
We're working hard.
I did want to talk to you about where can we buy these? Are they in stores yet, or is it direct to consumer right now?
Well, we're using a variety of channels. You can get it on Imperfect Foods along the West Coast. If you live on the East Coast, you can get it through Hungry Harvest. We're going to be launching in Stop and Shop, which is a large grocery chain in the Northeast, where if you're living in California, you can get us at Bevmo or on GoPuff. If you're in Oregon, you can go to New Seasons, Market of Choice, Fred Meyer to get Riff. That's all brick and mortar. But Imperfect Foods and Hungry Harvest are e-retailers. But you can also get, the best place to get Riff, well, I don't want to compare, but one of the best places to get Riff is on our own e-com channel of letsriff.com. So LETSRIFF.com. Happy to offer your listeners a discount code.
Okay. Wow.
For 20% off the initial order. How about 20% off the initial order?
Amazing.
And what you have to make up the discount code.
Okay. How about Cory Gated? CORYGATED. That's my nickname.
Cory Gated.
And my TikTok, that's my TikTok channel and my nickname after years in the packaging world. So I'll put it down as Cory Gated.
Cory Gated for 20% off your initial order at letsriff.com.
Excellent.
One of the things that I'd love to mention is, when we're thinking about sustainability, of course, environmental sustainability is top of mind, but we're also working at, achieving a triple bottom line. So thinking about social and economic sustainability as well. That's where real change happens. And one of the things that really got Yeah, one of the things that really got Sedona excited about Riff is there's a really tremendous supply chain economic inequity within coffee, and that is 75 to 85% of the world's coffee is grown by small, independent, smallholder coffee farmers carrying on a multi-generational legacy of growing coffee, but they're struggling to make a reliable living. So instead of having to pay taxes to have this coffee fruit hauled off to a landfill, they can, with generating demand, through awareness and translating coffee fruit into food and beverage products that have promise to scale, then we can potentially double their income and double their employment. And that's another thing that gets us really excited about this. And that's really, coffee's got multiple tiers of sustainability issues that it's facing. And this is one significant solve that addresses multiple problems throughout the supply chain.
Absolutely incredible to find a waste product and turn that into something not only valuable, but sought after. So well done. And I can't think of a much more sustainable option than that. So kudos to you and the team at Riff. Well, exciting.
Excellent. Well, we know we're not going to do anything. We can't make any impact unless, one, we create a product that's delicious. So I want to hear your feedback when you try it, Cory. Yeah. And two, scale. So we need to form a massive army around Riff so we can all together solve this problem, one can at a time.
That sounds amazing to me. I'll actually be over in Bend at the Association for Oregon Recyclers in October. I think it's the 20th in October. If you're interested in meeting up over there, we could have a Crux beer and then a Riff energy drink after that.
Yes, we will book in your day. We can also give you cold brew in the morning. So yeah, absolutely, for sure, would love to host you.
Thank you, sir. Well, again, thank you, Paul. I really appreciate your wisdom and what you're doing. Great things there at Riff. Thank you, Lansford Aurora, for sponsoring this podcast. If you're listening, make sure you've subscribed so you don't miss the next episode, and give us a review. We really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cory.